然后这场议程呢，分享他们在过去12到18个月中持续进行的合作和努力，然后，因为在过去这12到18个月里面，就是COVID-19 的大流行嘛，所以他们的演讲会去分析在过去这一年中，在 Ghost 的 DNS 上面有哪些新形态的攻击以及威胁，然后最后呢，他们就有与其他国家的 C 社跟 P 社合作，然后一起分享这些情资，然后让我们就开始聆听这2位讲者为我们带来的分享，谢谢大家。另外就是本次议程有支援线上的 Live Q&A， 然后如果想询问的话，可以透过网页的议程表的 Slido 连接对讲者进行询问，然后也可以透过现场提问的方式向讲者询问问题。就这样，那我们就开始吧。
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our talk entitled Collaborate from Home, the Japanese and UK edition. So to begin with, I'm going to give you a bit of a background about us as speakers, our history together, and then what our talk is going to focus on and contain. So to begin with, I'm Joshua Hopkins, a threat researcher with Team Cymru, and I'm the UK element of the Japan and UK edition. And with me today is Manabu, who I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay. I'm Manabu Miseki, and I'm Japanese, and I'm an ex-speaker of HitCon. So maybe this is not the first time to meet you. It's a great honor to give a talk at HitCon again. And it's really sad that I cannot reach Taiwan this time. I wish I could meet you shortly soon. And also, I wish our presentation will be something useful to you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Manabu. And I guess I echo some of those sentiments as well. It's a shame that we can't be there in person to meet everybody. And I think that's what is behind our talk in some ways, is this idea of how we can continue to collaborate in a new normal. So when we were first submitting this talk as a call for paper, we were kind of in a state of flux where everybody was working from home. We couldn't collaborate with each other, but we also almost couldn't collaborate with our colleagues in the same way. We couldn't meet in person. So as the year has gone by, this talk has evolved in some ways to look at how we can speak about our own experiences of collaboration to hopefully encourage others to do the same, based on what a new normal might look like. If we're moving towards remote working, how can we continue to have these kind of conversations and joint working efforts, and what are the mechanisms and the ways we can ensure that takes place. So we come up with the strapline of work from home, collaborate from home. So the talk today will contain examples of the collaboration that myself and Manabu have undertaken together, and then we'll talk about how we've then shared those collaborations with others, some successes, some failures, some advice for others, I guess. And so some tips on sharing, who to share with in order to make the largest impact possible. I guess we're all in this industry for similar kind of reasons, to improve internet safety, to mitigate losses or harm to victims, and so it's important that we kind of all work together to achieve this objective. So we're going to use a couple of examples, as I mentioned, and the first one is Ghost DNS, and I'll give a brief introduction into what Ghost DNS is first, if it's not something that people are aware of or have come across before. It's not really a threat that targets directly the Asian region, but as we'll discuss, it's something that in theory could do in the future, or has done under different guises. So Ghost DNS is a DNS hijacking campaign or toolkit which is sold on the dark web for about $450 and it incorporates a number of different open source elements. So it's basically a toolkit that's put together based on tools that are available for anybody to use effectively. So in the example here, it's using MassScan for its scanning element. And based on various different numbers that we've seen being mentioned, there's been upwards of 100,000 SOHO routers that were compromised using this infrastructure. So it mainly targets residential internet users, based on issues around credentials, outdated firmware. They're the easiest targets for this, and there's a real focus on South American users. We believe that at least the developers and the creators of GhostDNS are likely Brazilian based, and also some of the users of Toolkit as well. And the main focus is in credential harvesting, so taking creds from banking, e-commerce, a number of different other services like we mentioned here with Netflix, and then selling those credentials at scale on the dark web. So, taking bank account information and selling it for a couple of dollars, and then repeating that across the hundreds of thousands of victims that potentially lost credentials in this way. So in terms of why this is relevant for a threat that's targeting Brazil, we think it's still relevant because it's been around for a number of years now. It's not particularly sophisticated. As we mentioned, it's based on open source tooling, open source scripts. It's something that you don't need much technical know-how to use and to operate, but yet it's still been hugely successful with hundreds of thousands of victims, as we mentioned. And the way that we work is changing. This goes back to the point of remote working, and so we feel like SOHO routers are going to become increasingly attractive targets. And then the final point is using this as an example to consider whether we're prepared for more sophisticated actors using this technique or using SOHO routers in some form. And we point to the recent example based on reports from France that APT31 have been using compromised routers to target organizations in France. It shows that this is something that isn't restricted to cyber criminals. It can be used by nation states as well. And then also interestingly, as we've been tracking GhostDNS over the past year or so, we've seen a real spike in activity beginning last October up until around July of this year. And so we felt like comparing, like for like, month on month, this showed a real clear peak in activity that we felt might be related to the actors who were operating GhostDNS or operating similar exploits, to basically be making the most of the pandemic, knowing that a lot of people were at home using home computers for various different things, and effectively trying to take advantage of that as much as possible. So now we're going to talk about how we've then, once we've completed our work together, how we've then shared that or tried to share that with other people. So Manabu first is going to talk about some of the failures or the less successful outcomes that we've had.
Okay, let me share failures I made relating to GhostDNS. I shared collected IOCs with CertBR, the National CSAT of Brazil, through my friend who works at the National CSAT in Japan. But nothing happened. There is no reply, no reaction from CertBR. Please go ahead. In retrospect, I think my attitude towards information sharing is not good. I just shared a list of IOCs. I should share a context of information because, context matters. Also, information makes sense with a context. Just a list of IO sheets does not make any sense. Also, I have to set a shared goal of collaboration with an opponent before starting. Setting a shared goal is a key to success.
Okay, and then now I'm going to talk about some of the successes, I guess, that we had in follow-up to that. So taking Manabu's experiences in interfacing with CertBR, we established some further contacts with them, as Manabu mentions, talking about context, talking about effectively their objectives in tracking Ghost DNS. It's a very interesting subject for them, as you can imagine, with the number of victims. And you know, we were able to do that in part because we have existing relationships. We have contacts in Brazil who were able to effectively link us up with people in CertBR. And I think this really underlines the importance of relationship building in this space. So CSerts and certs are always organizations that you want to be sharing information with or liaising with as much as possible. If you come across something that you feel like it might be of interest to a country at a national level, I think those organizations are the best place to start. But as Manabu mentions, it's about establishing the context and what that looks like. I mentioned here priorities and patience. You know, a cert is dealing with any number of different threats at one particular time, and it might be that your piece of information is interesting, but it might not rank at the top of their list for priority at that time. So it's about being patient and, you know, following up if you don't get a response, but being patient and waiting for the answer, and then working towards not just sharing your information because you think it's interesting, but also working with the other party to establish what would be of use to them. It might be that they've already had that information shared in the past. And I think another important area is in social media, and maybe the way that we use it within the cybersecurity community. You know, a lot of people are using social media as a mechanism for ingesting IOCs. You know, we turn something that is a human platform into an automated, you know, automated data collection environment, effectively. And maybe we're not using it in the way that we should. Maybe we should be, you know, reaching out more, speaking to different people. If we see somebody reporting on something that is also of interest to us, can we be reaching out more, sharing the conversation, sharing our findings? And I think that's a really interesting area that we're almost forced to get into because of the changing landscape with the pandemic. And then the second example is Mokhao or Xloader, which Manabu is going to introduce.
Okay. Mokhao is Android malware. It is spread via SMS and log.dns servers. A campaign spreading Mokhao is known as Xiaoye in Taiwan. Please go ahead. At the moment, SMS is the main attack vector of Mokhao. There is a URL of a landing page in SMS, and a victim is navigated to download Mokhao if a victim uses Android smartphone. Otherwise, if a victim uses iPhone, a victim is navigated to a phishing website which impersonates Apple. Yep, please go ahead. This is an overview of Mokhao distribution on one day in September. France, Japan, Germany, South Korea, the United States, Turkey, and Taiwan are targeted. Please go ahead. Again, Taiwan is one of the targets of Mokhao. Mokao uses a transport service in Taiwan as a rule. Excuse me, I'm not sure how to pronounce it in your language. I mean traditional Chinese, but I can read takyubin in Japanese, and I know it means a transport service. And yeah, please go ahead.
And then another element of our research or tracking of Mokao has been looking at the network telemetry that Team Cymru is able to provide, and looking in particular at second stage C2 servers. So at this stage, we know that a potential victim has already downloaded the malicious APK, and so this is the follow-up connection generated by the malicious file. And as you can see here, we've redacted the victim IP addresses, but we have seen consistent victims connecting from Taiwan. And we've replicated this across different countries as well. So one of the things that we tried to do with our collaboration on Mokao is to show to different countries that it's not a threat that only targets Asia. As Manabu mentions, we've seen victims in France and Germany and Turkey, around Europe, the United States. And I think the more you raise the profile of a threat, the more that people can come together and work on it. So I pass back over to Manabu.
Okay, yeah. Why is this relevant? The new normal is working from home and also ordering from home. So I think postal or transport service becomes a favorite lure or threat actor. The transport services in South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan are used as lures by Mokao. Yeah, please go ahead. And again, let me explain my collaboration failure relating to Mokao. I got a DM from a guy who claims he's a researcher, and he looked legitimate and looked like having a good reputation online. He requested to share Mokao information I collected. Then I was so naive, and I shared information with him without any doubt. But he did not share anything with me, and also he published an article about Mokao without credit. So please go ahead. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, and again, he didn't share anything with me, and also he published an article about Mokao under his name without any credit of me. So I was just robbed. Yeah, please go ahead. Lessons I learned is be aware of trolls. Trolls are everywhere, and you should share information only with trustable persons or groups, otherwise you will be robbed. Please go ahead. And an issue to be solved is creating a good relationship during the pandemic, because getting to know each other well is difficult nowadays, because there are many restrictions. For example, I really miss a beer bash after a conference. In my opinion, there should be a beer bash after a conference, because it's a very good opportunity to make friends. Yeah. I'm not sure because I haven't tried it, but all boys gather or something like that may work, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Let me know if you have a good solution for that. Yeah. Please go ahead.
So to talk about, I guess, again, some of our successes with collaboration is we look to work with a reputable body. So we worked with JPCERT to share some of our findings. And a lot of this was based around victim analysis and trend analysis. So one of the questions that was asked was about impact over time, and so we looked at a particular period in the Japanese calendar where there's public holidays, the Golden Week celebration, and we saw a large increase in victim traffic over this time period. So it helps us to understand the scale, the effectiveness of some of the campaigns. Targeting people, as Manabu mentioned, when they're more likely to be doing online shopping or effectively not, they're not working, so they're doing other things with the internet at that time, and we saw the threat actors really targeting that period. And I guess having established a collaboration effort based around victim analysis, it's allowed us to kind of develop over time to look at other areas. So obviously our end goal in this is to help to identify and to disrupt the actors involved, to identify their infrastructure at a higher level. But it started off with that initial collaboration around victims, and it's also opened up. Manabu gave an example of a bad situation with a researcher, but it's also opened up opportunities for us to work with different researchers on this topic, who've either reached out to us or we've reached out to them because we've seen that there's a shared interest in Mok'Hao. And I think that's again a really valuable thing, is just sharing what you found and not being scared to share what you found is really important. And so now we're just going to summarize what we've spoken about today on the sharing is caring. Manabu, you go ahead.
Okay. In conclusion, let me explain what I learned from failures. The first one is sharing information without any context and any commitment does not make sense. Sharing is caring, but the way of sharing matters. And the next point is creating a shared goal with an opponent is a key to success. Yep, please go ahead. And also, don't trust someone who you don't know well, even he or she has a good reputation online, because maybe he or she may be a troll. Trolls are everywhere. And also, don't be a troll. Be nice. Give and take matter. Yep, that's all.
And then I've just got some final thoughts on what we've spoken about today and for the future. In summary, so the way we work and collaborate has changed as we've spoken about and as we're all aware, and so I guess we've got to evolve and adapt to that. And so we're encouraging people to not be afraid to reach out to others. Look at the people around you at the conference. Maybe take the opportunity today to speak to some people that you've never spoken to before. Find out what areas they're working in, what's of interest to them, and maybe you might find something that you can work on together. And then also don't be afraid to reach out to others. In the social media space or through other avenues, but just exercise the caution that Manabu mentions about trolls and people not collaborating on an equal standing, and also I guess the other side of this is to be receptive to collaboration opportunities that come from others. So in the same way that you would like somebody to respond to you, if somebody reaches out to ask about your research, as long as it's okay to share it, then I would encourage to do that and to try to work with other people, because I think that sometimes we're not aware of different thought processes or ways of understanding a threat that can be aided by speaking to others and by sharing what we know. There's lots of groups and forums and mailing lists that people are likely to be part of, but I think it's always useful and valuable to be expanding on those, and utilize organizations like the CERT in Taiwan, or CERTs around the world. That they're going to be reputable, that they're going to be interested in useful information, and there's ways that you can set up data sharing, information sharing in a way that's going to protect your interests, protect, if you're working for an organization, maybe setting up a non-disclosure agreement or something so that you can share the information, but it doesn't necessarily get used in an open platform, an open forum, again, as Manabu experienced, where somebody else effectively stole his work. So that kind of finishes up what we wanted to talk to you all about today. I hope it's been useful and maybe generated some ideas, and I hope that you go away from this and maybe collaborate with somebody in an area or region that you'd never thought about before. And I think working together like that, we can all kind of make a larger impact in the world. So now we'd like to open up to any questions. I guess this will be online based. I'm not entirely sure, but if you also want to reach out to us, we're on Twitter at Ninoseki and at Team Cymru_S2. If there's questions that come up after the event or after the talk, we'd be happy to hear from you. And thank you again for the opportunity and the honour of speaking today. And hopefully at an event in the future, we'll be able to meet in person.